Welcome back to the Schoolers podcast with Amy and Claire. And today we're going to be talking about socialisation because we all know that home educated kids aren't socialised. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Mm.
I think it's the one question that is on everybody's lips, isn't it? When you say that you're going to home educate your kids.
Yeah. Well, it's the preconception and judgment that everybody has before they get into this world. I know that I had it. I'm no angel. Like I wasn't open-minded to it. I just thought that home educated kids were, or homeschooled kids, however you want to phrase it. I just thought they were weird and they must not have any friends and they must not know how to interact with the world and not know how to navigate the world properly, like as we do. And it's completely, my opinion has totally turned on its head to the point where I am totally the opposite now, that I actually think that social
Yeah,
skills are learnt outside of school in a not school environment, and that school is a very unnatural way of building social skills that then aren't representative of what it's like to socialize in the real world.
yeah,
Be the same.
completely. And I think that for me, I always remember that feeling of like being out in the playground with friends and stuff, and then that bell that stops it, and that's the end of that, and on to the next, into another class full of some different people that you've been forced to socialize with, and then the bell goes and you're on to the next.
Yeah,
You don't get that time to
and even
freely
during those
do.
small times, they're actually punished for socializing. They only have those tiny pockets of time throughout the day, those two break times that they're actually allowed to socialize. They're not
Yeah,
allowed to chat in class. They're not allowed to play and have a joke with each other or build those relationships that they want to build because they have to sit in silence and listen to the teacher. They can't listen to each other or discuss anything because they have to be quiet. So it's quite interesting that this whole notion that kids are only social at school is really, when you look into it and how much time they spend socializing at school, it's so minimal. And uh, yeah, it's quite interesting how that is the norm and the standard. And well, if they're not going to school, they're going to miss out on all that social, all that hour, all those 60 minutes worth of
yeah.
social friendship building. And even then
So
it's so layered with other fitting in the box um things. Like kids have to, they can't play with somebody who is not in their year group because, oh no, you're younger than me, so I'm not going to play with you. And I can't, yeah, they have to fit into one specific group at school. Like you have to be one of those in order to fit in and to then have a safe environment, feel safe at school. And so that you're not picked on as being an outcast. Because if you're a loner, oh, you're a loner, and now that means that we're going to bully you.
yeah, I remember that quite vividly at school because I was never like the popular kid.
Yeah.
Um, but I always know, like, even now, looking at social media or like seeing somebody out, if they were like one of the popular ones, so to speak, I'd always be like, oh God, they're higher than me.
Yeah.
Like, I need to wait. Maybe they should say hi to me. And if they don't say hi to me, maybe I shouldn't speak to them.
Yeah, because you're
And
not.
that, I think, yeah, because I wasn't one of those popular kids.
Yeah. Oh, and that stays with you, doesn't it? I do the same. Like if I'm on
100%.
Facebook or anything and you're friends with these people
Yeah.
you went to school with and you
Yeah.
um
If I could go back to school, that's one thing I'd do differently. Is
what?
I'd not try and follow others,
Mm,
not try and be like, not try and be somebody that's other people wanted me to be.
yeah.
Have my own voice and have my own opinion, and what I truly want my children to have. It might not be the opinion of somebody else, but it's your opinion, and that's what counts.
So do you think that if your kids were in school now, they would be different?
Yeah, yeah, because school's like a huge influence, isn't it? Like school
Yeah.
is massive. No matter what the voice is at home, like that's your roots and that's your kind of like,
Safe place.
yeah, your safe haven to be, and that's where you feel that you can be yourself. But when you go into school and you're having a pressure of, like, all of your friends, for example, that the only children that want to play a certain way or in a certain game, and that's not what you want to do, you almost feel pressured to do it, because, and it's almost like you suppress all that emotion and wait to get back home to
Hmm.
release it, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, yeah, I think Harry would be a completely different child if he's at school, and that's no, I haven't got bad words to say about schools. The school system is under a lot of pressure, and that's not the teacher's fault. But from my own experience, I was different when I was at school.
Hmm.
I wasn't me. I wasn't myself.
Yep.
And
And I
that's
think,
because of peer pressure.
oh, it is. And unhealthy, that unhealthy level of pressure, peer pressure. And yeah, I wasn't either. I wasn't myself at all. I was a shell of myself. And I
Yeah.
just tried to blend into the background as much as I could, not draw any attention to myself. And I think I really carried that through into my adult life. Like I didn't know I came out of school and I was like, who am I? What do I even like? I don't know if I like that thing because I've just followed what everyone else was doing because that was the safe option. And yeah, have to go on a whole soul searching journey when had, you've been so detached from your inner self for such a long time and through
Yeah.
such fundamental years of your life. It's yeah, I don't think it's something to be taken lightly. um I know that is one of the biggest, I'd say one of the biggest worries for new home educating families is the fact that how are my kids going to socialize? How am I going to um provide that same level of socialization? And I think it's what we look at is probably the amount of children that are surrounding that one child. So if you think about a primary school, a standard primary school, there's probably 100 kids in a primary school, but a lot more than that in a lot of other primary schools. So you think, oh, how
Yeah.
am I going to provide my one child with 100 other children around them,
Yeah.
which would then compare? But quantity doesn't mean quality relationships and quality friendships. Like we know that. Um, so how do you make sure that your kids socialize?
My kids have a better social life than me. In the home ed community, I think that's the biggest, like you said earlier, it's the biggest worry on everybody's lips. How
Mm.
am I going to socialize my kids?
Yeah,
And actually, once you get yourself out there and, find the community of where you are and the other children, there are so many,
yeah,
and everybody is just lovely. And, we just make that sure that, every day we're looking for something to do, and I don't have to look far.
mm.
Harry's the most social little boy ever. He just loves being around other people, his friends, and you know what? When we go out, I don't see him. They just get on with it.
Yeah,
Whether that's with their monster trucks or playing their games of, being creative and being different animals, or playing on the slide on their bikes. There is always, we're just always out. We've got so many friends. And do you know what, when I think about it, I'm probably making my best friends in this too, which I've never had, because my children have an amazing social life.
oh,
And when you home educate and you're in that environment, it's just wonderful. It's just so, you know, they just, well, they're just wonderful. I just love it.
Yeah.
I could beam about it all day and tell you that, you know, how much my kids, you know, just love their everyday life, and we just live it, and we explore, and we have so many opportunities every single day that we can go, right, let's go to a meet today and go for a walk. Let's go to a park. Let's go to a forest school. There is always something on,
Yeah.
always. You can find that.
But did you find it hard to find that group to find those communities that really resonated with you and that felt like your tribe, your people?
Um, oh, at the start, we've mixed with a lot of people at different events. So, for example, you know, a particular forest school that we went to, I just didn't click with some of the parents, and that's okay. I'm not there for me, I'm there for my kids.
Mm.
But Harry also didn't gravitate. So we just didn't, you know, we tried it again, and he just didn't gravitate towards the children. So we didn't go back.
Yeah.
But once you find a circle, which we have, and it's, you know, we found such a huge circle, and there's always new faces. And once we found those people, I just knew that, you know, we'd found what we'd been looking for, and the kids just love it. You know, there's so many different ages within that group, and yeah, we just have fun.
Mm.
And parents aren't too bad either.
No, I mean, jokes aside, I do think that it's something that I underestimated. I underestimated how much I was going to have to socialize, and
Yeah,
I was going to have to get on with parents just as much as my kids. Because you think, oh, it's for the kids, it's for the kids, it's for the kids, but it's not just for the kids, because we need it too. We need that community around us to make sure that we stay sane and we can share things with, we can share the whole experience with the parents. And we found that really difficult at the very start for
yeah,
a good 5-ish months at the beginning. We had no one around us. We had no friends. My kids didn't have any friends. Like, they obviously, we had friends from schools, and I had other friends that had kids, and we still met up with them and stuff, but it's not the same as finding your group and your community within this
yeah,
community. We went to so many groups. We went to like loads of meetups, all this sort of stuff, but it just felt like the people that we needed to meet weren't there. There were all these families had pulled out for a multitude of different reasons, but it wasn't the same reasons as us, and they didn't have the same. We might have shared values and beliefs and stuff, but it just wasn't the same as like clicking with someone and being like, oh yeah, that's how I think too, and that's what we're doing as well, and that's how we do life, and that's how we think about that particular thing. And we actually met someone this week. Shout out to her if you're listening, because you'll know who you are in a minute. And she got emotional at the end of the meetup, because she said, I can't believe that I have like found you, and that I'm not alone. So I'm not alone in
oh,
I'm not alone in how I feel, in how I think and how I'm feeling about this whole, because her kids weren't old enough yet to be, they weren't school age yet. So she was sort of like testing the waters a little bit. And she was like, oh, I don't know whether my kids are too young to come to these meetups. And I looked around and I was like, I have a 2-year-old. There is a baby over there. No, just the sooner the better, because the sooner you've
yeah,
got your community around you, school applications, not going to phase you. You're just going to think, well, I'm not just not going to do that, because you already have that community built up and you already have all that support system. You're not going to need to worry about registering.
And that, what a wonderful way to find, you guys at that stage, because I wish now, looking back, that I'd have found you guys a lot earlier.
Oh yeah, me too. In a way, I wish that I would have done this back when my 8-year-old was, before he went to school, before he went to preschool. But at the same time, I think all of these experiences and these have led up to us making this decision, and have added to the whole reasoning why. Like, we have these bad experiences. Not that you need to have bad experiences, but they just solidify for us. No, well, we don't want to go back into that and remember when that happened, and yeah, that wasn't good. So it helps in my mind to have those experiences to build the whole picture, I suppose.
Yeah.
But in terms of how we provide social opportunities, what do you do in a week? What's a rough sort of idea? What does a week in your life look like?
So social wise, Mondays we have gymnastics.
Is that
So
home specific?
love it. Yeah, so it's specific for home educated kids. Well, it's during the day, isn't it? So obviously it's it's designed for the home ed kids.
Yeah.
On We don't actually have any other clubs that we go to in a week, apart from on a Thursday Harry has football on an evening, and my goodness, like, he absolutely loves it. You would never know. I actually had a conversation with a woman tonight. So she'd come along for the first time, and her son was like really stepped back and sort of like, she was like, oh my god, he's normally really confident, he's normally like loving stuff like this. And I said, oh, but it's his first time here, like he'll get used to it, like he's such a sweet little boy, like he'll get used to it. And she was like, oh, was your little boy like this? And I said, yeah. I said, they all were. I said, they're not a group that know each other, don't go to school together. And she went, oh, what school does he go to? And I said, oh, no, we're home educated, like we've just chosen that route. And she was like, really? He's home educated, like, but he knows everyone. I was like,
what? He can interact and socialize? Oh my god!
Like, yeah. I was like, yeah, but none of them are from the same school. We didn't know each other before this football group got together. And she was like, oh, okay. I said, look, you're on the WhatsApp group with all the football bums. I said, if you ever want to meet at the park so they can all get to know each other, so just pop everyone a text. I said, we all love stuff like that. So he has his football. And then, do you know what? Throughout the week, it's just the meets that we look for. So we've only got those two clubs really that are regulars, so to speak. But other than that, we just make sure that we go on to, obviously we've got the Spond in our community, and the WhatsApp groups, and there's always something going on. There's always something. There's always an opportunity to get out. And you know what? If there isn't one, create one, because there's going to be other people at home that are going, oh, what should we do today? And I think that's all you need.
Well, but how would new families? How did you find these communities? Because I feel like we are a little bit of an underground. we sort of keep ourselves underground to a point, don't we? I mean, not meaning to, but when you're not when you're not in this community yet, you wouldn't even know that it existed, because I didn't. Take me back 2 years. 2 years ago, I didn't have a clue that any of this stuff was around, that these people existed, that these groups went on, that these discounts happened, that these days out happened, that these particular clubs were going. I didn't have a clue. So how did you find all these different things that are going on?
So the first place that I actually met home ed families is there was a home ed biking session going on, and we went along, and is that where I met you?
Yeah,
it is, isn't it? That
Yeah.
was the first time. That was our first ever group that we went to. And I just remember saying like that Harry was going to we were going to home educate. And then it was a bit like, us too.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple of other families there, and they were like, yeah, we've chosen that as well. And then we kind of like created a bit of a WhatsApp group, and then it's just expanded from there.
Yeah.
It's just grown, and there's always those opportunities to find what's going on around you. You know, the Facebook groups, there's I'm forever seeing posts on like home ed, West Midlands, home ed, anywhere, and they
Mhm.
always put their location, and then somebody will comment and say, you know, we go to here, or we there's always stuff going on. You can find it if you look for it.
Yeah. Just like exactly the same with education. I see us as a facilitator of opportunity. So, like,
Yeah.
giving them as much opportunity. It's an opportunity to socialize. It's an opportunity to learn about this particular thing, or it's an opportunity to do this particular activity. And
Yeah.
I just see us as making those available to the child. So for me, it wouldn't matter if we went somewhere, and because my 8-year-old used to be extremely um shy, and I don't really like to use the word shy because he's not shy, he's just extremely sensitive to new surroundings and new things. So for instance, he started Cubs about 2 months ago, and for the
Yeah.
first 5 weeks, probably, I had to go with him and sit in the kitchen. I wasn't allowed to leave. I had to stay there with him, bearing in mind he's like nearly 9. But do you know what? Back when he was younger, I'd have found that really frustrating because I would have been expecting him to go in there and just, what are you making a big deal about it for? But now I'm just like, fine. I said, okay, I'll sit here for as long as you want. Like, as long as until you feel safe and happy to go in there without me, I'll sit in the kitchen. And it turned to like week 6 or week 5. And I said, can I sit in the car park? And he's like, mm. And one of the cub leaders came over to me because I sat in the kitchen again. And he was like, well, next week we're going on a hike. So I think it might be a good day for you to go and sit in the car. Do you mind if I ask him? And I said, well, he's probably more likely to say yes to you. And he did. And I went and sat in the car. And then the week after, he went on that hike. And honestly, he ran off. He was gone. Like, he didn't even look back. And now he's like, you can leave now. It's fine. He gets out the car and goes. I don't even have to get out the car. But
His emotions were acknowledged, weren't they? You acknowledged his emotion and his feeling of being in a new surroundings, and
yeah.
listen to him.
And it's, it might take a bit longer, and that might not be the process that a lot of other kids go through.
Mm.
But if I'd have pushed against that and been like, go on, I'm going to sit in the car, no, go, I'm not going to stay. You're being silly, go in there and make friends or whatever, have fun. I would have been placing so much pressure on him that he wouldn't have been able to have fun, and then it would have caused resistance and he wouldn't have wanted to go to the group at all. So it would have just all
Yeah.
backfired. Whereas me just sitting there, and you know what? I got to have a cup of tea, sitting in the kitchen, chatting away with a scout leader. I didn't really mind it that much, but
Yeah.
and now it's at week 5, week 6, week 7, and he's off and he's happy, and he knows that I am his safe place, and if he's feeling ever unsafe, I'm there. And that's all
Yeah.
that, and that's the most important feeling for him
Absolutely.
inside. He feels like, no, I've tested this now and it's safe, and I know that you can go, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They are still only little, even at 8, they're still so young. And it was exactly the same. So for instance, in our week looks like Cubs on a Monday. Tuesday we don't have any clubs, but there's usually there might be something going on, or we'll go and visit grandparents or something. Wednesday, there's always usually a social meet on at a park or something. The same on Thursday, there's usually something going on, just a random. And then we have another social meet on a Friday at a pub with bouncy castle. And after that, he does a youth club, which is for kids age 7 and above. And it was exactly the same at the youth club. I used to have to go and literally, I was playing ping pong with him in youth club as like the only parent in there. But then the other kids come over to him and are like, "Oh, want to play doubles." So it's me and him versus these other 2 kids. And then another kid comes over and I'm like, "You can have my bat." And then it's so gentle that he doesn't even realize that I'm not with a part of it anymore. And now it's the same with that.
Yeah.
Like I had to stay in there with him for a good few weeks. And then it was I could sit in the car, and then it was, you can go now if you want. You can go home. And he runs off and runs.
Yeah.
And that has got absolutely nothing to do with him being home educated, because he was like that a lot worse. Not worse. He was a lot more extreme to the reserved side before he was home educated, when he was at school.
Yeah.
So him being home educated, if anything, has brought him out of his shell and made him more confident in himself, because he wouldn't have done those things before. He would have just sat at the back, like sat right next to me, or hid behind my legs, and yes, it's probably partly to do with age, but I do think that handling situations like that, how we handle them, makes a big impact on how they handle it, whether they go into fight, flight, or freeze mode, or whether
Yeah.
they think, okay, I can experience this from the sidelines for a bit with my safety net, my comfort blanket, and then I might be able to just dip my toe in and come back. Much like a toddler, they go off, they come back for you. They go off, they come back for you.
I agree.
Um, it,
Harry's exactly the same. When he was at preschool and nursery, he asked to go, so we sent him. But the preschool especially, he would kick and scream, like he would cry going in, and you hear the words all the time. From me as well. I'd be like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll have a lovely day. Go see your friends, do some art. Come back. I won't be long. I'll be back to get you." And every time he'd come out and he'd say, "You were too long. That was too long." And
yeah,
even now, if I mention um, he wanted to go to a group on an evening, squirrels with his friends, and even now, you know, going back a few months, I actually said to him, like, "I promise, if you don't want to go anywhere and you don't want me to leave you, you don't want to go somewhere that means mommy coming away, then we won't do it for a bit until you're ready."
mm.
And he said, with squirrels, he was like, "Well, do you stay with me?" And I was like, "Well, no, but it's okay. If you don't want to go right now, you might want to go in a few months."
Yeah, there's going to come a time
Yeah.
where they don't need you, or want you there at all.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's going to be a time come when they don't even want you to drop them off. Like,
Yeah, can you
they
drop
want
me
you
off
to
down the road?
drop me down the road. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that time will come. And that's what I keep reminding myself when I'm sat there in the kitchen, that like the time will come when he's ready. And it comes a lot sooner than maybe, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does take longer than you anticipate. But if it's on their terms, then
Yeah.
at least they feel safe and secure,
Mm.
and like that, so that they are in a place where they can enjoy it, instead of feeling like pressure to enjoy something. When when someone places so much pressure on you to enjoy your time, it's like, oh god, they're watching me, or I must enjoy this, I've got to enjoy it. You don't enjoy it because you
Yeah.
can't.
So how does a typical social that you go to look like? What what's your involvement? How much do you get involved, or do you just step back and let them get on
Don't
with it?
I try not to get involved as much as possible. unless unless a new family come and talk to me and like um and their kid is particularly shy and
Yeah,
they are similar age to mine.
yeah,
I If that happens, I'll happily bring one of mine over and be like, "Oh, this is so and so. They're new and they're feeling a bit nervous. This is their first time, and why don't you go and introduce them to people or something like that?" But other than that, and unless they are physically hurting each other, I try to just leave them to it because they have to sort it
yeah.
out between themselves. We're not overseeing it. You don't oversee it if they went to school. The
Mm,
teachers aren't overseeing it at lunchtime. Not, I mean, they can't, they physically cannot keep their eyes on that many children at all times at school when they're socializing. And
mm,
we leave them to it then. And not that I'm saying that that's the right way to go about it, but social skills and building their own social dynamic with all the different ages and with the different abilities and interests. And I want to play like this, but I want to play like this, or I'm not interested in that and I'm interested in this, and finding their own groups and splitting off in their own ways. They have to sort that out. That can't be done by us. And
yeah,
that's really important skill for them to learn so early, I think, because they are already socializing in such a natural way and finding their own place, and they're using their own voice and being their own person
mm,
without feeling the need to fit in, because there's always
mm,
another option. And even if I want to play on my own, it's fine.
yeah,
Nobody's looking at me going, "Oh, you're doing playing on your own, you loner." They're just leave you alone. If you want to be on your own, you're on your own. Like, we know that. Sometimes we just want to be on our own. We don't want to socialize. And that is one of the difficulties of being, if you are an introvert as a
yeah,
parent, you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to put yourself into these situations so that your child can have can build these social friendships that we all so desire to have. And that so it can be tricky, but I definitely just leave them to it. Unless
yeah,
someone comes to me crying, or unless I can see some physical fighting happening, then I'm not getting involved. It's not my friendship to sort out. And I think then, even if you do step in and you start refereeing and siding and working it out for them, it lowers their authority and their power and their self-confidence, because you're always going to step in and sort it out for them. They don't have to sort it out for themselves. They don't have
yeah.
to speak up for themselves if they feel like something is wrong, because you're going to do it for them. And I don't want to take that away from them, really.
No,
What about you?
I literally don't need to do anything. I think that, when we go to these meets, regardless of how many people are there, who's there, all of the kids are just so wonderful, and they just get on with it.
Yeah.
I literally have no need to step in. Like, we're not, we might go to a social setting where there is planned activities, in which case I haven't had to do any planning or organising there, and the kids just get stuck in. Or if we go into a place where there is just free play, I've never had to like try and make it so it's not awkward or anything. They just play, they use their
Yeah.
imaginations and they just play. If anything, the only time I have to step in with mine is to give them like the 10-minute warning that we're about to go, and it's like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And that's the only time really that I have to have anything to do with it.
And
And
it's It's
Olivia's
so,
2 and she's doing it too.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. When we go to some
Yeah,
of these social meets, it's like you see
yeah,
the 2-year-olds playing with the teenagers, and the
yeah.
teenagers are all playing with the 8-year-olds and the 5-year-olds, and then there's a group over there that's just a few of the same
Yeah.
age or very similar ages, but it's the age, they just find their place according to their age and their abilities. And do
But
the
they know
older
they're
ones get,
different.
and yes, the older ones can get a bit like,
Yeah.
probably a bit like, oh, you like a bit, oh, not annoyed with the younger ones, but like it's only natural, isn't it, for the older ones to
But they
be,
don't know any different, do
but,
they? They don't know any different.
and they don't do it in a way where it's like, I don't know, what's the word? Oh, I can't think of the word. But the teenagers just seem to deal with it in such a different way. Like they just they are still sensitive to the fact that these kids are younger than them, even if they might not want to play with them at that moment, which a lot of the time
Yeah.
they sort of just slot in, some of them, and
They
they just
do.
all slot together and fit. But if they don't, they find a way of working around it where they don't make that child or that other person feel like crap about themselves. They just are like, well, we're doing this thing, and there's a group of kids over there that might be doing something that you'd be interested in.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
watching them all play, like watching them all on a hill with all their shoes off, and just all the different heights and all the different ages and all the different outfits that they come out in, and it's like, it's just amazing. You think this is how it should be. This is how it should be, and
It's
that's
what
how
it's
it
all
would,
about, isn't it?
yeah. And that's how it would have been naturally with when we still lived in tribes and in communities that did that sort of thing, and that wasn't school, and kids weren't banded into age groups and ability groups. And
Harry didn't actually know how old Hudson was
mm,
because he doesn't see him as an older child. He
yeah,
doesn't see him as, I mean, when you're in school, you see other kids as the older ones or the year above or the year below. And that's how I
untouchable.
remember people
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
that's how I remember people now. What year was you in? Oh, you was above me, weren't you? Or you were the year below.
still
And I
talk
think
like that now.
that,
Still talk
yeah,
like that
but they
now.
see no different. Yeah.
Yeah,
But they just see everybody as an equal. There is no grouping, there is no judgment or actually you can't play with me because you're 3.
yeah.
We just don't see any of that.
They
And I'm
just,
not saying we never will.
yeah,
I'm not saying this is plain sailing and we have no arguments amongst them because they naturally do, but we just they don't see each other. They see everybody as an equal, and that to me just completely warms my heart.
yeah. I had a situation on holiday, and someone said to Hudson, like, so he's 8, she was only 7 at the time. Oh, this girl is 7. Play with her. He was like, no, don't want to. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. I don't know what he was doing. And then as we left, um, there was an apology given to the family because he wouldn't play with this girl who was 7. And I came away and I was like, that is so odd, because we wouldn't go into a bar and I would be like, oh, this woman, she's 35, she's the same age as you. Talk to her. You just wouldn't. And yet
Sorry.
that expectation is placed on him. And then to be
Yeah.
I'll be like, I'm so sorry that she didn't talk to you. I'm so sorry that she didn't come and make friends, because she's the same age, you know. It's the same age. It's like that.
Oh,
That is
no.
not, they might not have any shared interests whatsoever. They might have zero interest in even playing with each other. They might be quite happy to play by themselves. But because they had the same age, it was like, you must play together.
You have to.
Yeah, I found it really odd because if you'd had to put it into an adult situation like the bar, you just
Yeah.
would you'd be like, I don't really care. I don't know how old you are. Don't even know how old anyone is in our group, but it doesn't matter because
No.
we're just adults. And yes, age gap, the age difference between kids is more prominent, obviously, when you reach an adult, but you can tell the difference between someone in their 30s and someone who is early 20s. It's the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see the point in banding people together. Like, Hudson's friends are 13, 7, and everything like around that. It doesn't,
Yeah.
to him, it doesn't matter as long as they share the same interests and they bond over something. They are mates, which is just how it
Yeah.
is when we're adults. Like, oh, you like doing this hobby? So do I. Let's do that hobby together. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
And sometimes we carry childhood friendships through into our adult life we wouldn't necessarily be friends with that person if we'd met as adults, but just because we have that history
Mhm.
together. Not saying that those friendships aren't valuable and aren't, you don't want to have them, but some of them I think we do carry through for the sake
Yeah.
of for the sake of being childhood friends, which
Yeah.
isn't always healthy either necessarily. Have you faced any challenges in on the social side of things?
Um, I think that when we're out and about and we're in a big group, there's definitely children within the group that Harry just doesn't gravitate towards. Now, I don't see that as a challenge. I just see it as they're just not, they're within the group and, and that's fine. He just doesn't necessarily choose to socialize with them.
Hmm.
And that's no negative on their part or Harry's part. They just don't have the same interests as Harry, and Harry's more likely to gravitate towards somebody. For example, we was at a park, and we wasn't even at a social meet, and I was playing on the swing with Olivia. I turned around and I could not see Harry anywhere. He'd left the park, only stood by the gate, and he was playing bat and ball with this little boy and his mum.
Mm.
Like we didn't know these people, and I just literally turned around and was like, oh my god, how are you okay? And he was like, yeah. And she just said, is he okay to stay and play ball with us? Now we don't know them, but he was gravitated towards them because they were doing something that interested him.
Yeah.
So I would say that we don't necessarily have challenges that we've faced yet, but there's definitely people within a group situation that Harry just doesn't necessarily gravitate towards, and that's okay. There's no pressure from me for him to do anything with anybody in particular.
Yeah.
So what about you? Have you found a social situation where you just didn't want to be, or
There's nothing been particularly challenging, only, like I said, making sure that you get yourself out there and make friends yourself and put yourself into these uncomfortable situations. They can be sometimes uncomfortable to put yourself out there and turn up to somewhere new,
yeah,
where you don't know anybody. So that's a challenge, I suppose. And just normal kid stuff, really. Like, that person did this to me, or they hurt me by doing this, or, that just happens at school all the time. And that happens in any kid's situation all the time. So
yeah,
there's not been any real challenges. not now anyway. Not now that we've found our people. We're really making a big effort to build up that community and to seek out all those opportunities. And if it's not there, we make it. But I think you can only do that if you've got a community around you. I wouldn't have been able to do that at the beginning.
No.
Where I didn't have anyone to bounce my ideas off and say, shall we do this together? Because it's a lot less daunting to do something together than to do something by yourself when you don't know anybody. So that's been my only challenge, really.
And I think as well, because us as the adults, we actually have to spend more time together than the children. Because in the social situation, like the kids are off playing and they're off an adventure or, you know, doing whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And us as adults, we actually probably have to socialise that bit more because we all step back and let the kids just crack on with it. You know, at school, you know, the school playground, you see it, don't you? The way they all like congregate. But how long does that last? 5 to 10 minutes? I mean, we could be out some days for what, 5-6 hours?
Hours at a time. Yeah.
In one spot, and we're just, you know, sat on the park benches or, you know, on the grass on a picnic blanket, and you know, and I think that us as adults probably have to socialize more than the kids.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do find your people, like you guys, when we're out, like if I just want to sit back and chill on a chair or like relax, and we don't have to always find small talk. It's just nice to be around like-minded people that are on the same journey, and our journey doesn't have to look the same, but we've just chosen the same path. And you know, and it's always good just to I guess our conversations must sound so similar all the time, because we must be forever going, oh gosh, like how are you finding this, or how we, you know, have you got any tips to help with this? And but it's just so nice that we've all got each other's back. And I think that have just found socializing more than the kids.
Oh,
it's not kids friendships, we're on about like adults here.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. We do. We have to make new friends, and we have to go through it just like they do. And to be honest, the social thing is the easiest part of this whole journey. Like socializing your children is the easiest thing.
It is.
That's been the case for us anyway.
I found it really easy. I found this whole, I just feel really lucky and really thankful to have found everybody, you guys, my lucky stars every day, because home ed or alternative education can feel like a really lonely road until you put yourself out there and find others. And there's so much of it out there, but you've just got to be the one to make the move and look.
Sometimes you have to put it out there, don't you?
And if you can't find it, create the group.
Well, that's what we've done, isn't it? But sometimes it can just take a while for you to get your feet and to get in these different crowds and to find your people, because your people will be looking for you too. But sometimes it is hard to remember that when you're in the moment and thinking, oh God, we've got no friends. But in the grand scheme of things, how long is a few months in the rest of their life? It's not that long. It's not gonna. And some kids need if they've come out of school and they've had a traumatic time at school, they're gonna need a bit of time just to breathe and not be around other kids. We haven't had that. Luckily, haven't had that issue, but I know that a lot of children that have been pulled out because of bullying or because of anything else like that, it can be really hard for them to then get back into. They don't feel safe. They don't feel like they want to spend time around kids because they think that all kids are going to treat them in the way that they've been treated, which isn't the case that's not the way that a home educated child's mind works in social situations anyway, so it wouldn't happen. But they don't know that. That's their only experience of socialization with kids, isn't it? So well, thanks for sharing your experience. Hopefully it gives you a bit more of an insight into what it looks like when they do socialize, and that it is very different to school, but they're not missing out by any means. I think kids at school are missing out on the diversity of friendships that can be made during that whole time that they're at school, and they create such rich, deep connections and friendships because they are prolonged as well. Like you said, it's 5-6 hours a day sometimes.
Yep.
That they are just playing together. They're just building those friendships, and it would take a good few weeks for a school kid to have that much time with someone. So,
and I truly believe that they're building friends for life here.
Yeah.
Wish that I had this connection with other kids when I was this age.
Yeah.
I really do, because it's so wonderful to see.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It just proper pulls on my heart. The way that I see these lot play together, it's on another level.
Yeah.
I can't even put it into words because it's just special. And it almost concretes for me that I made the best choice.
Right decision. Yeah.
For us, but we made the right decision.
I watched a study recently about the happiest nations in the world, and the UK came out as the #1 most unhappy nation. And the reason is because we are such a performance-based country. So everything is based on performance and how well you do something. And the happiest nations are the ones that are like, yes, there's the Netherlands and Denmark and Scandinavia, but there's also those like that still live very much community minded in Africa and the islands, like Dominican Republic. I think Dominican Republic was actually the happiest, and it's because they're all about community.
Wow.
The nations that are focused on community are the happiest, and the ones that are focused on performance are the most unhappy. And that is like, school is just a massive environment of performance-based criteria and striving to perform to a certain level. So no wonder our kids are all coming out with more anxiety and more depression and just generally being unhappy, because we're not placing any important, and then they're being punished for building their communities and and doing their socializing because it's not the right time and place. But it was really eye-opening for me. I thought that was really interesting, and I compared it to our situation and thought, well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking them out of the performance-based situation, and we're putting them straight into a community-based situation and watching them thrive and flourish, and ourselves included. I think we're creating this community around us as parents, and that in turn boosts our happiness. Yeah. So if that's not an indicator as to where kids are going to be most happy and thrive more, I don't really know what is.
Yeah. No, it is completely. That shocked me, actually. That shocked me. Well, no, it hasn't shocked me, but it shocked me that it actually, that study took place.
Yeah. Well, she was a neuroscientist, and they like, the whole program that we were watching was about them trying to quantify happiness, and they got it down to like certain levels and certain hormones that your brain produces, and there's like 5 different hormones or 6, and all emotion is based on a combination of these different hormones. And it was really fascinating. But to see that we
Wow.
were the most unhappy was quite shocking, quite eye-opening, and the reasons for it as well. I just thought, wow, well, that's just goes with everything that we believe, it doesn't it? We'll leave it at that. Yeah. So thanks for listening. I hope you gained some
Yes,
insight into what it's like in the world of socialization for home educated kids, and gives you a lot more encouragement that they do socialize and they do make friends and they do build meaningful friendships and relationships with each other, and with even with school kids as well. They
yeah,
still mingle and interact with the school kids and the different clubs and different things, and they can still do that too. So
absolutely
if
they
that's
can.
the only thing holding anyone back from taking this jump, I'd say it's the absolute easiest thing to get right because it's
Yeah,
the easiest thing about this whole decision and this whole journey. So
yeah.
don't let it hold you back, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.